So he discussed in the beginning the idea there are different types of hair cutting. There's the Mitzayra, there's the Nazir, there's the Levium. There's the idea of covering the hair by a woman, by a married woman. There's the idea of the Gilchas Roisha by the Yifas Toyer. He's going to try to explain what all these different things mean. So let's start reading. We're on the first page, which is 208, Mitzvah Tiglachet Mitzorah. And we're going to start from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13th line, the line starts with the word Nizro, Shenemar Kodesh Yeh Gadel Pera, and we're moving towards the last 5 words, 6 words, Lavin Zeh, literally half the sentence. To understand this, Lavin Zeh, Hine Yesh Levaer, one has to explain, Kol Zot, all these issues of the different ideas of hair, Al Pi Masha Shamana, that which we heard, Lamais, it's a mimer, in a book called Likutei Torah of Admor HaZaken, which is Admor HaZaken, the Alter Rebbe of Shnei Zalman, the first Baal Rebbe, which was his grandfather. It's printed in the book called Likutei Torah. And you can see it there. Here is doing somewhat of a synoptic overview, but it's really at length there. Fisha Shamano ala Pasuk B'Gilchat Rosha. In the pasuk of Gilchat Rosha, the Yifat Torah, man goes to battle and sees an attractive lady there, which he wants to take home as his own. Well, there's a whole process of what he has to do. Now, there are 2 parshanim that I know, which take that as, once again, Alpi Drash, Soid, etc., to explain this is basically God teaching you how to deal with interaction with the world around you. For example, the Orach Chaim. And that parsha, which is really worth reading, or Chaim, which, as we know, is the Baal Shem Tov saw him as his counterpart, and he was like an unbelievably holy man. He's buried in Har HaZeitim, by the way. The earlier Chaim discusses there. He discussed the idea of there's kedusha out there in the world, not just in the Beis Medrash. And how do we go there and extract it and bring it in back into Kedusha or translate it in Kedusha? And he sees this whole idea of the war of cultures, of going and taking that special beauty found in, let's say, Yafyapusa Yefes, in the beauty of aesthetics or of other cultures, and to bring it into the Ohalei Shem, bring it into the tent of Shem. It's a very beautiful Arachaim. I just give you literally a fast metaphoric thing, but it's worth looking into it. He also discusses the idea of Nishmois Gerim, the Neshamas of Gerim, which because of whatever dynamics were, I'm not going to discuss it now, called Jgirata Kelim, it's a very Lurianic doctrine. They were mispazer, they dispersed between the Umos and to distract that, to attract them and to bring them back. It's a whole process, and that's he looks at the parsha of Yifas Toar, metaphorically, Alpi Drash or Soid or Remez, whatever it's going to be called, dealing with that. Now, the Alter Rebbe takes that parsha to discussing something else. It's something similar, a similar idea, but take it much more personalized, not the idea of how do I do well in Harvard or how do I do well in Yale, but rather how do I do well with myself? And this is what he discusses. And the pasuk says, "Nidbe'er b'Torah." B'Torah means Torah of his grandfather. Pasuk now, and that pasuk Yifat Torah hu chelek haneshama she'ena mitlabesh baguf. Kim omedet b'pchinat makif mimal. Here I must explain. Okay, the neshama, as we know, is called 5 names: Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yechida. I mean, if you know in Lubavitch, the minig is that by a yard site they light 5 candles. Most people in the shul, when they have a yard site, they light 2 candles. At home, you light 1, whatever it be. But the idea behind that is, I think I explained it once in the shiur. The Shama is a Shem Kolel, is a broad name describing the total that entity called this soul. But in truth, it has 5 different levels of expression. There's what you experience in your body per se is what we call nefesh and ruach. Nefesh means to say that expression of the soul, which transforms you from just being a mass of matter into an organic living entity. That's called nefesh. That's what we say that the life, the nefesh adam is in the blood. What does it mean? The nefesh adam is in the blood. It means that the blood is the stream of constant nutrients to rejuvenation of your cells, which equals you're alive. As soon as the blood, as there's no more life product needed, because there's no life, so therefore there's no more necessity of there's no capability of rejuvenation of the cells, and therefore the nefesh, the life, is not expressed in that anymore. That's what we call someone that killed somebody is shofech damim. Doesn't mean he spills blood literally. You can be a shofech damim by throttling somebody. It means to say that that you have thrown away the meaning of the blood. The blood until now was the stream of life, and now it's just a murky, sticky, reddish liquid. That's all. You've made it meaningless. That's what you've done. The very same thing, it says that when you shame somebody, as if you're shofech damim. What does it mean? Are you killing him? It makes him feel nothing. You've taken away from his sense of self. You've emptied him out. He's become meaningless in his eyes. That is murder. That's the same thing. So this is the idea. So now we know that's the nefesh. That's why the nefesh is engaged in your mitzvahs. It's also engaged in your averos. Let's be blunt about this. And that's what the chi of chorus is to your nefesh. Okay, because that's what's engaged in your avera. Your ruach also. The ruchos means your emotional personality. Your active mobility, the movement of feeling, all this is what's called the ruach. Ruach, a person has. You want the leiv tahar brali elokim, but ruach nachon chadesh b'kirbi. What do you want? A heart transplant. You want a new sense of feeling. Okay, leiv tahar, you mean the metaphor of the emotions in the heart. Leiv tahar brali elokim, but ruach nachon, and a correct sense of feeling, ruach, which is again by emotional persona, should be nachon chadesh b'kirbi. So we talk about ruach, we're talking about your emotional reaction to the world around you and how you react in a proportionate way. So this is a nefesh and the ruach. That's called mislabish. It expresses itself literally into what a living person is. He's a living organic matter, which definitely has a psychological profile. Now, there's what's called neshama. Neshama is that which is that which is called God. That is called the neshama, which is not expresses love overtly in man's life, but it influences it. It's above him. It's something somewhat similar to, we should say, the crown on top of the head of the king. It's not part of the head of the king, but that crown is his office, and therefore influences how he or she, well, it was a she, it was he, we'll see soon, how he reacts, how he speaks, how he does. That crown creates a certain sense of that is mashpia on how he will do. It's not inherently part of him. He can decide to ignore it, but you can't exactly ignore your nefesh. You're alive. I'm sorry. You can't ignore your psychological profile. You stuck. Okay, the best you can channel it, but you can definitely ignore your neshama. Most of us do. Okay, we don't really care about what it has to say too much. I mentioned this one. The Reb Chaim Volozhin said that's why we say in Siddur, neshama shenasat tabi tahira. She still is pure because she wasn't engaged in sin or in any polluting activities. She only influenced, but she wasn't active in the avera. Therefore, there's no creases of the neshama, the creases of the nefesh. Okay, this is what that aspect of the neshama is chorus. But the other aspects of the neshama, there's no chorus there. One has to remember that. Okay, so now he says that's the fast Torah is a pseudonym. Now the source of this, okay, bluntly, is Mamish Eitz Chaim, where he discusses this. I read this is Eitz Chaim. I think it's page Lamed, if I'm not mistaken, where he says Chelek HaNeshama she'eina mitlabesha b'guf. That aspect of the neshama which is not expressed overtly in the body, not nefesh, not ruach, but the other levels of neshama, which are neshama, chaya, and yechida. I'm not going to explain those at the moment. Ki'im omedis b'bchinat makif, it hovers above you, equals, it's not part of your belt neshama, but it influences from outside. Mimal shenikras, why is she called Isha, and why is she called Yifas Torah? So he explains. Sibot he'eta nimshechet mibchinat klalut kama bchinot. The source of neshama, it's very interesting. The neshama of a Jew. We know that it actually is composed, as Rav Chaim Volozher once again discusses at length in Shar Aleph Nefesh Chaim, from all the kaiches of all the Bria. Literally taking the DNA of the total mass of creation is basically the composition of what you call neshama. It's because of that you have a capability of what you're doing to touch everything at the highest level and change its essence from Taba or to Kisei HaKavod. It's because of that our mitzvahs and ma'asim tovim changed the whole interaction of God and creation to good, and chas v'chalil to the opposite of good. He discussed over there that people that don't have a neshama of Israelis can never touch Shmei Shamayim. He says that Titus and Nebuchadnezzar may have destroyed the Beis Mikdash in Har Moriah, but they cannot destroy the Beis Mikdash Elyon. They cannot destroy the source of Beis Hamikdash. That what Beis Hamikdash is, b'shorish, the idea of God having a interaction or a dynamic of interaction with man and creation, that they can't destroy. The only people that could destroy that are the Jews. And that's why the Gemara says that Titus and Nebuchadnezzar, they ground wheat. Kemech tachun tachanu. Kimcha tachina tachant. We destroyed that Beis Hamikdash by destroying the interaction and the relationship. So what was left just was the external building, the facade, and that they can destroy. The neshama of a Jew can make him break things. Always remember the lashon of the Ramban in Parshat Bereshit, where he discussed at length that everything in this world is an external expression of a deeper thing in Shirashim. The language of the Ramban is Hakosav Tidaber Betachtoinim V'Yermoz La'Elyonim. That's the lashon literally of the Ramban in Parshat Bereshit. Very important thing to remember. When you want something, you don't just want it betachtonim, you want a change b'shorashei shorashim. I'll give you an example just to explain this. When we're coming into Hanukkah soon, okay? So there's this whole story with the candles, right? And there's who knows what. So much literature spoke about the miracle, the candles and the holiday, candles. I got news for you. For goodness sakes, Hanina ben Daisa had a bigger miracle. All he had to do, he took vinegar, which really is not a fuel, and it lit the whole freaking Shabbos. To Gemara. So why didn't we make a Chanukah and Hanina ben Daisa Shabbos? The Marshal, good old Reb Shlomo Luria, in Yam Shleim, if I recall, I think it's in Baba Kama, describes how he once had a very small candle and he wanted to learn. It was a dark night, and God helped him. That candle burnt the whole night. So he had a private little Hanukkah story. Does anybody make a hoo-ha about that? Do you even know about it? No. So why is it the things that happen to Klal Yisrael, all of a sudden we make a big spiel? You know, everyone thinks, what's Hanukkah? Obviously the candle, the flask of oil, and I don't know what, right? That's what they all talk. And since I grew up as a kid, that's what they spoke about. The Marshal had a private Hanukkah. The Hanina ben Dais had it quite very often when he was out. He was a poor man. He didn't have oil. He used vinegar. No. And the teretz is a double pasha. Because nisim that happen just in this world are not worth commemorating. Nisim which change, which are this world, the change in this world is nothing more than an expression of the change in the total dynamic between God and this world. That stays forever. My dear friends, it means to say that whatever it was, there's a question of tumah versus Or HaMenorah, which is a symbol of bringing Chachma and Kadosh Baruch Hu to the world. What really happened in Shevish Hashrachim, there was a crisis. Can Chachma Torah survive within context of foreign or Greek culture? That was the issue in Shevish Hashrachim. God said that was the message. Yes, it will survive. Okay, you guys do your thing, and it will survive forever. That expressed itself externally in a few candles lighting for 8 days. But believe me, the candles lighting 8 days, that doesn't do anything for me. Chanina ben Daisa, poor Chanina ben Daisa, he probably never got excited about it. Yeah, I do that weekly. Yeah, but there's a big difference. This was, by Chanina ben Daisa, was just a nes, ba'olam asiyah in this world. by Anshik Nesagdai, when we talk about Hanukkah, which is very early, talking if you're still in Bayis Sheni, what are we talking about? We're talking about no. This was a Nes in Sherish Shvatim. What does the Menorah mean in the Beis Hamikdash? What does Shema mean in the Beis Hamikdash? What is the opposition called Tuma of Malchi Yavan in the Beis Hamikdash? That relationship's dynamics were changed, and thus there's a candle out there. There's a very big difference. We're not celebrating the candle in the Mikdash. We're celebrating the candle in the Mikdash Elyon, of whatever that means, which is expressed in Mikdash HaTachton. So I just want you to remember this. It's a very important thing. So we talk about the neshama of a Jew, and the neshama of a Jew is color of so many different koiches. It touches everything. Now, in Kabbalah and Chassidus, it's also mentioned as the neshama is daimet Yaakov Avinu. What does that mean? This is what the Rebbe is going to say in a minute. The major two forces of creating anything in the world are called Chachma and Bina. The idea of basic knowing and then comprehending. Okay, it's only after you know and comprehend you can extrapolate and create. In your midas, in your interpersonal personality, you have what's called Chesed, your extroverted, expressive personality, and Gvura, your introverted, constricted personality. Now, if you just act as an extrovert, those guys are the most, can't handle them. They always think they're in a party and they're flat and they're hitting you on the back and say, "How you doing?" Relax, man. This is not martini time. Relax. We're in the middle of business. Okay, doesn't work. The flip side is you have this guy which looks like a Tisha B'Av face. You know what I mean? He's these type. They get you nervous. You can't function that way. We need someone which has to know, who knows when to be extroverted and when to be introverted. He has to be able to merge two total extreme personalities, knowing how and when and how to be 60% X and 40% Y. He's got to be colorful. If you're a monocratic person, you're either black and white, you can't function. It just doesn't happen. You can't. Look, I'm married 50 years now. Let me tell you, it's impossible. Okay? You have to be able to be flexible and colorful. The more colorful you are, the more you will be able to deal with much more complex realities. Now, what is beauty? Beauty, by definition, is the harmonious merging of different elements, even extreme elements. The harmonious merging of different elements is what beauty is. The idea is we have different elements or different properties in ourselves, and they're so different, and you're capable of merging them. Think of what beauty is. I think I told the story once about this girl, and she came into the class, and I was teaching Nishma, and her navel was exposed. And she says, like, why do you want to expose your navel? She says she thinks it's beautiful. So she says, why do you feel your navel is more beautiful than mine? So she says her navel is attractive. So I says, yeah, what do you want to attract exactly? Are you flypaper? Okay. So obviously we had this long discussion. What does beauty mean versus attraction? And beauty really means, I'm going to say it again, the harmonious merging of different elements. I can only tell a story that I can never forget. I every so often tell it that I did and still do love art. Okay. Like when in LA, I went to the Getty Villa, okay, you know what I mean? Like Roman art, you know what I mean? That's a nice place to go, by the way. They don't have much on Los Angeles side, but in Chicago, we have the Bill Art Institute. Remember MZ? Okay, we really have a real good museum there. Okay, compared to that, the Met in New York is a poorhouse. Anyway, so I was come home every 2.5 years, put my bags down. Hey, Mom, I'm going downtown. I wanted to see this because in those years, Jerusalem didn't even have a museum. You understand? Well, they had a few sculptures of Christmas. I wanted to see art. Andy Warhol. I don't know what. Anyway, so I go there, and there's a canvas, and I'm looking at it and said, "This doesn't make sense." Just sat there. It's just black, black. Now, I know modern art is a bit crazy, but goodness sakes, I still have respect for that institution. What's a black canvas doing on the wall? So I said, it has to be a lum this year. I just have to find it. And then I suddenly realized it's a bit of a pun on a contemporary movie. There are infinite shades of black. And it was unbelievable to see. It's because it's dark, it's much harder to notice. Gray is easier, okay? But there are so many shades of black with microscopic movement from one shade to the next. This was a piece of Iluyishkeit. It was brilliant. To make a thing like that, you had to be, first of all, about seichel and a hell of a lot of patience. Okay, you know what I mean? Thus is this I really said it's beautiful. What was it? It looked like one tapestry, but it was actually a beautiful, harmonious merging of different elements. And that was the beauty of it. In music, if anybody would ever know, the Ravel has bolero. Okay, anybody knows music? It's the same monotonous thing, right? But it goes up with a quarter note every time, and it's like it's music to fall asleep with. It's perfect. Okay, what's the beauty of it? It's the same again, different elements, but everyone is different. They sound the same, and they're not. They're different. Each one is a quarter note away until it goes up to a crescendo. Wow! And then you finally wake up. This is the same thing. That's what beauty is. Beauty is the merging of chesed and gevura, the merging of the different elements. That's why the midah of Yaakov Avinu is called tiferet, beauty. He is the unifier of different elements. The Baral says in Parshas, in Ger Aryeh, and Parshas Kiseitze, that's why the stones became one under the head of Yaakov. It was to teach him that his ideal in life is supposed to be is the unifier of different elements, fighting fragmentation and seeing harmonious connection of all into one. It's a very beautiful morale. Yes.
Oh, a quick question. I believe that Rav Blachman mentioned, if I remember correctly, that beauty also, the word symmetry can also be applied to beauty, but the harmonious. So harmonious.
Not have to be harmonious.
Ah, okay. Right. Does
Correct?
not be symmetry.
Math talking, Alan. No, but doesn't have to be harmonious. It's true. Symmetry can be very harmonious. Doesn't have to be. Okay? So this is what you have over here. So this is what the Rebbe writes, that the neshama, because it's composed of all the different kochos, specifically of chesed and gvura, or chochma and bina, he says, therefore, sibat hayota nimshechet is drawn mipchinat klolus kama bechinos. The neshama is derived from different types of bechin, different types of ideas, different types of kochos, which actually sometimes look at totally opposed to each other. Kama bechinos. That is what beauty is. Kimo begashmi, just as in gashmi. Gavan echad ino yefeh. Just black is not beautiful, as opposed to common. Black is not beautiful, but multitudes, harmonious merging of different blacks, that is beautiful. There you have. Okay. But if something has a multitude of different colors, so to speak, together, it is beautiful. Thus, it is nechmad lemareh. It's also something which people enjoy gazing at. When we talk about the idea of tiferes in the midos of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, chesed word tiferes, or in our own midos, what is tiferes? Klulami chesed begvur yachad. It is a combination of both the extremes of extrovertedness versus introverted and restricted persona. One would look at the two avos that we know. Yaakov, we have Avram Avinu, which is wow. He's this big kiruv rabbi, a big apostle, a big running around and hey, you have dust on your feet. Let's make birchas hamazon. You know what I mean? This is like a real Chabad shliach. And they have Yitzchak Avinu, which doesn't even go outside of Eretz Yisrael. He lives in Me'ashur. God doesn't even let him leave. He's a protected soul. He was born holy, and you must not even engage the world around you. He doesn't go, as a footnote once pointed out, the poor guy didn't even get a name change. Father got a name change. The son got a name change. Hey, he's a shlach. A geboren Yitzchak and gestorben Yitzchak. He's a Yitzchak. Okay? You know what he is? He ain't doing much. Exactly. There's Avodah Hashem saying, God says, you don't have to change the world. First of all, preserve what you have. I tell you a good word. I once said, people ask me this, there's always a difference about education of children. So I tell them, I want to tell you what sort of education is. I said, I have to, in Los Angeles, I have a Shabbos on education in February. So watch this. Here's a theme to remember. Okay? The Malach, if you, by Shimshon, the Malach meets Mrs. Shimshon, we don't, Mrs. Manoach, we don't know what her name is, Mrs. Manoach, and he tells her, you're going to have a kid, and it's going to be very special, just don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't. She's not telling you, the nose and the nose and the nose, refrain, protect. Oh, she accepts it. And she comes to her husband, Manoach, he says, listen, I met this Malach, and he told me, what did he tell you to do? Listen, this. But what did he tell you to do? Look at the mother, be careful. Listen, I know what you can't do, but he tell you what to do. What should we do? So he said, I don't know. He didn't say what to do. You idiot. Let's bring him back. So they bring up Mr. Malach, and the guy says, hey, she didn't understand. What are we supposed to do? And the Malach reiterates what he said before, just don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. In other words, Nudnik, al tafriya. Just don't do what you don't have to do anything. Let things grow naturally. Just make sure you channel it correctly, move it. Don't have to break anybody's head. Just nurture it. Don't do. That's a big yesod in life. So that's what the Malach tells Manayach. Nudnik. There are times in Judaism which no one's asking you to be creative. First of all, preserve what's there and don't damage it. And that's Yitzhak Avinu. A very, very constricted persona, not doing cure projects, not making a Shabbos project, I don't know where across the world, not building new kahilas. No, he's preserving. Every revolution needs somebody to do that, to first of all preserve, consolidate what we have, and then you grow further. The next stage is Yaakov Avinu. He's already creating a lot of things. He energized us. He has a multicolored family, and each of those 12 fellows, they're all different as enumerated in the personalities described in Parshas Vayechi, where he describes the personality of each one. They're all different, yet he's capable of binding them together with a common ideology. That's the idea of a personal beautifier. He finds fragmentation, but as he doesn't like the boring one-colored reality, he has this multicolored family, but he knows how to unify them to an idea. And that's the idea of Yahweh. That's your Teferis. So this is what it says. So what is Isha Yifas Tayer? Hainu Chelik Haman Neshama, Hamalubish Beguf, Shu B'chinis Mekabel. That aspect of the Neshama, which is found in the Guf, what means found in the guf? It means to say, so to speak, it has a shaykhis to the guf. Because before he just told you it was makif. Now we're saying shubetaycha guf. But it means to say that aspect of that neshama, which is a makif, which is mashpia in the guf. Yes, it's mashpia. It's outside. It influences the guf. That's what it means. Mikabel michelik haneshama abilti mistabish b'guf haniki pastoyer. That influence, which is in the body, comes from that, so to speak, the external neshama, which hovers above the body. That means to say as follows. Ishi Yifas means there are influences of Kedusha, which are not from any Kedusha found in you, but the external influences of the neshama. Just remember that. Okay, so now he says as follows. Hine kasha Ishi Yifas that Ishi Yifas that neshama nisashpa, which is now Nebuch, it's in Golus, in your guf. It was supposed to influence you to do good things. You had koiches to do good things. What did you do with it? And now it's Nebuch and Golus in your experiential self. You took the capabilities, for example, of simcha. Simcha, because what does simcha mean? A sense of fulfillment. Okay, that's what it is. Simcha is a person that feels a sense of fulfillment. That's what simcha really is. Okay, and that's what should be fulfilled on Yom Tov. Okay, so it doesn't mean jumping around on car tops or things like that. It just means be simcha, feel fulfilled with what you have. So happy, feel fulfilled with that. The lot that God gave you, because that's what you're supposed to get, man. You're not going to get more anyway. We'll get used to it. Okay. So what happens is, now this poor capability of fulfillment, you took it, it influenced you, but now you can channel that. You can decide, I'm going to be fulfilled with a steak. I'm going to be fulfilled with adding a lot of money into my bank account. But that neshama actually, that influence was supposed to make you feel fulfilled with sameach bechelko. It must be sameach, as the Rama writes in Chasidut, sameach with the mitzvahs and abbas Hashem shetziva b'hem. Okay, there's different things you should be fulfilled with. But it's never within the galus now, because that same spiritual reality, which influenced you, and therefore you have the capability of this simcha. It's not galus by nefesh ba'am, is what we call your experiential self. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's take it very carefully. For example, there is what you have a sense of spiritual elevation, right? We had a generation which everybody wants a pseudo Hasidic tish, and we should sing a lot of, I don't know what, MBD songs or Freed or Yishai Ribo, and we will all be close to the Lord, right? That's what we want. We feel it. Everyone, we're all growing. I worked at NCSY, so you know what I mean. You feel God. I met God on Killington just when I was going up there with my mountain bike, and felt it in a cloud. Okay, that's it. I've done a lot of ebbing, so I know how to do this. We can do an ebbing in NCSY or Havdalah, man. That's when you really take the skyrocketing. Now the question is this real? 90% no. It's the tool, it's used. I hate to say it's somewhat of a con job, but is it real? Is it a true emotion, or is it just some external reality to make you feel good? And you wonder, I have this great capability of spiritual elevation. I can take it to doing Torah, mitzvahs, learning, giving true depth and texture to my Judaism. I can take it to have a great kumsitz with a bonfire and marshmallows and sing kumbaya. Sorry to say, we've taken today in contemporary world, most of them say, oh, we're going to have a Malav Mag with Hasidic Tish with Yishai Ribo. Yishai Ribo never lived Chassidus in his life and doesn't know what it is. So he sings beautiful songs. And so what? Now, you know what I mean? And we also call them soul-stirring songs. Your soul does not stir from it, believe me. At the most, it's your nervous system. Okay? Your soul doesn't stir. Maybe in soup. You know what I mean? Goodness sakes. So, but this is what we do. We use terms to say that emotionalism equals spiritualism equals I now feel very more religious. Is it really, are you really more religious? Or just feel good about yourself in a religious context? And that's a serious question. The acid test is, what do you do with those feelings? Does it make you wake up a little earlier and come to shul 5 minutes earlier to say karbanos slowly? Do you learn more Torah? Do you do more mitzvahs? Are you mechaven more in Kriya Shema? I hate to say it, in most cases, no. That means to say it's what you call, you had yourself an external trip. What you're nurturing was your sense of self, nothing to do with God. You were using God to feel good about yourself, but that's not really God. You're not serving God. So you took this unbelievable kayach, and it's in Galasi, your nefesh bahamis. Nefesh bahamis means the sensuous, experiential self. And I just want to quote the Rambam. You should know this is an unbelievable thing that the Rambam writes in the book, and he's a very strong Aristotelian. Rambam writes that the chush, that sense of man, which is the most animal, and we should be ashamed of it. He writes literally, straight out of Aristotle's Ethics, is sensuousness, the touch feeling. Says that, what can you do? God made of us, we need it to do a lot of things in the world, but it's a busha to a man of intelligence. Man should be living in a pure thought world. The idea of judging things through feeling, sensuousness, Gnai, he says this is the most behemoth that we are. A really, really very elitist Greek approach. It's the truth. But that is why we call, this is the Tanya calls it, the Mike says it's Chaim. The Eitz Chaim calls it Nefesh HaBahamit. What does that mean? Not that you're an animal acting as a pig. You seek experience through experiential, sensual feelings. The world that you will feel totally with your 5 senses without usage of that big mass of material which evolved in your mind. Now, goodness sakes, other people will use that also. For example, this we're going to get to the theme. for practical accumulation of life, funds, etc. And you've got to ask once again the question: your capability of practically making this life livable is what you share with the animal world. The only difference is you have the potential to you don't have it when you're born. You have to go to school for it, and the animal somehow knows how to hunt pretty fast when you go to to the wild. So the beaver knows how to build a dam without going to MIT. You know what I mean? And the salmon knows how to go back to where it was spawned without. He didn't need a Waze for it. No, that he's spawned. He goes upstream to back where he was spawned in order to be my behavior. It's unbelievable what animals know to do. The one thing we have, which the great designer created, which didn't happen anywhere else, is our capabilities of abstract and transcendent thought. We can think about the abstract, not about what we're doing or what we want to gain, but why and where does it come from, what does it mean? And we can talk about Shirish Hashrashim. It's so funny. How much of that part of your brain do you use? That part of the brain which differentiates you in essence from the animal world. The fact that you can build a bridge and function and drive a car, well, the animal has the same thing. He has whatever he needs. You are learning to do whatever you need. That's for food, clothing, and shelter. That's what we do most of our lives: food, clothing, and shelter. But that doesn't make you into a person. That is enough for your nefesh habahamis. You want to be able to keep soul and body and be comfortable. What does an animal want? We we have Arba Avos Nezikin, Shor, Bor, Mav, and Hever, and three of us are in Shor: Karen, Shen, Verega. What's Shen? Any damage an animal does because of hedonistic pleasures. I wanted to scratch my back, and I broke someone's wall. Okay, that's us. We are a bunch of Shen and Rega. We're clumsy. We go because we want to go, and we trample things. So in other words, if I look at this carefully, I look at this, all our lives are food, clothing, and shelter. That's the truth. How often do we sit back and ask, okay, what for? Where does this lead to? And okay, you're going to have a better lunch, and you know what I mean? How often does it go to the next stage? Okay, how far does it go? I want nachas my kid. Okay, and therefore, is that where you were born? Is that why God created this enormous mass of the brain which you're not using? If you think of it carefully, that whole part of you which has to deal with the capability to transcend it in abstract thought is rarely used. And that's the part which makes you a medaber versus a chai. So that's mamish. That thing is in golus, for goodness sakes, in the nefesh habahamis. The best you'll think of is erotic poetry. I don't know what. You'll think of another way of making yourself feel good. You know what I mean? Or write a good novel to make yourself feel good. Now, why? Take it further. So whatever these countries are, they somehow are justified in society around us. Also, it's in golus by the nefesh habahamis. That's what happened. So this is what he says. He said that chelik of the neshama, which influences man, okay, which is this great idea of transcendent thought. Okay, where does it happen? It's golus in the neshama. He says, "Kasher isha yifatot b'chinat galut b'nefesh habahamis ubaguf shehu mashche dechivya." Mashche dechivya means it is literally. This is the very Kabbalistic. I'm not going to elaborate too much. The body's skin is called the skin of the snake. What does this mean? Called the skin of the snake. So the Gemara says that on the pasuk, "Vayas Hashem Elokim la'adam lishte kotnot or vayal b'shem." Kotnot or garments of leather. He made themselves very nice leather suits. And Rav Meir in his Sefer Torah made a note. The Sefer Torah, Rav Meir, he used to learn in the Sefer Torah. It wasn't like something you kissed and put into a box. That was his Bible. So he wrote notes on it. People can't even think of that today. I mean, it was his textbook. Okay, so he wrote notes on the Sefer Torah. That means the book that he was learning from. And next to the word oir, he wrote Aleph Vav Resh. Not only did he make it wasn't just skin that he gave them, it was light. Okay, their bodies radiated with intelligence. That's Chochmas Odam Ta'ir Panav. Your face radiates, your countenance radiates your intelligence. Well, there, God gave him the capability that the whole body will radiate intelligence. That's what he did. That's what Meir was saying. So you should know it's written, this is already written also in the Ariya Kaddish, based on a Gemara. What the Gemara says, if you know this, that, so to speak, metaphorically, there was a sexual liaison between Chava and the serpent. More so, it says in the Ariya Kaddish, you're going to freak about this, that Cain, don't even ask me, was born from those liaisons. You know, I just told you, it's really crazy. Cain was born from those liaisons between serpent and lady. This means to be physical. Is it metaphoric? Totally not. Totally. I will kick it into metaphor simply to keep it in normal plane over here. It means to say that that he had taken the man prior to engaging with the serpent was a walking model of pure intelligence. He didn't even experience sensuousness, so that's why he had no problem walking around nude, because he looked at his body as functional. Every organ was a function used for the purpose of his creation. It was very mathematical. So there's nothing to be ashamed about. The idea of shame didn't occur to it. Are you ashamed that your nose is uncovered? No. So why would you be ashamed of other parts of your body would be uncovered? There's no difference. The answer is it's only after he blundered into a world of imagination and subjectivity. Oh, this is good. This makes me feel good. This makes me feel bad. So suddenly he attached importance or meaning to certain organs of the body, which therefore demanded privacy and ultimately was ashamed. That's what happened. This is not me. This is Rambam in the second chapter of the Guide Perplexed. He writes this. So thus we know that the Meir is telling us originally his body was light, because that's what his body was. It radiated the meaning of intelligence. When the Nachash polluted Chava, so to speak, the Gemara calls it Zuhamata Nachash. The whole humanity was polluted now with that Nachash. What does that mean? We are no more the paragon of light. Our bodies have shame in it. Our bodies are the opposite. There's nothing beautiful and pure about it. At the most, it expresses sensuousness and subjective feeling. It's no more a medium of expressing our intelligence. Metaphorically, our minds are at ends with our bodies, so to speak. Usually you say the idea, I have a taivas haguf, they call it in different language. It means to say the fact that you are a sensuous person, so naturally your sensuousness is going to not want to think too much, because, the klal is, well, I don't want to quote too much, literature, but when certain, let's say, when the hormones are rolling, your brain is on flat, okay? You don't think. And when you think too much, your hormones don't roll that fast. Rambam writes that when do people have problems with erotic things? Because leiv hapanui min hachokhmah. If your heart be full of intelligent thinking, you'll be running after this. You'd understand its function, you'd understand its purpose, you understand why and how, but you don't take it for more than what it is. You take it to what it is. It's a very beautiful balance there. We don't have that balance in a good way, at least not in youth. And therefore, this is what's happening here. So that's why the body is called the skin of the snake. The body that we have today is the product of the zayama of the nachash. Now, the truth of the matter is that the zayama was nifsak mi Yisrael and matan Torah. The only present luchs were broken and it came back. And that's the challenge. So that's why the skin, the body is called mashka dechai. It's not just that you have a sensuous personality or nefesh or Bahamas, but it has a great dominant tool, which is the body. In other words, the mind has he's supposed to control all that. Lemaisa, what did the Nachash do? He decapitated man from his mind, didn't let the mind come down to the body, and the body now is somewhat quite autonomous because it's the ultimate expression of your sensuous sense of self. So man is much more sensuous than he's intelligent. That's the honest truth today. People are much more sensuous. I want to feel good. I want to do this. I want to feel good with religion. I want to feel good with this. I want to feel good with it. With, I don't know, with the chocolate sundae. I want to feel good. That's a big key, okay? We even bless each other. Good luck. Taiv. Taiv is a subjective term. We wish each other. Shana Taiva Umasuka. Did you notice? We don't say it's a shana that God should do what he wants with me. No, I want you to feel good about it. I want you to feel sweet about it. We are all sensuous. And we want a sensuous experience with our religion, which is legitimate, but it can't define religion. Okay? We must not look at ourselves as only as sensuous animals. That is a galus. It's the galus of the ashpa, of the neshama, which is mashpia in the guf, which now is in galus by that nefesh Bahamas, by your sensuous emotional persona, which has this great tool called the body, which is mashcha dechivya, equal to the snake's body. This is what this means. Sha'az, at that stage, and this is us, midas levushe nefesh Bahamas. It is the midas, and the levushim means what? The machshava diber ma'aser. Why are they called levushim? They're the tools of expression. You have a personality. You express it in thought. You express it in speech. You express it in action. Okay? They're called levushim because you can choose not to express yourself. It's like a piece of clothes. You put on a piece of clothes, it expresses you, expresses your feelings, especially more in the women world. A piece of clothes defines her mood. I mean, anybody knows that. Or things like that. These are levushim. So the levushim of the nefesh sholtim al nefesh elokis. Yeah, because experiential self is at the moment, because the way it is it simply has a big body to work with. So man is much more. That's what happens. Al direction is Bible. This is elaborated on in Tanya in Perek Yud Aleph. So this is what we talk about the nefesh, the eishes yifas. We're talking about that property, the ashpah of the neshama, which could have been straight going not to sensuousness, but going through an idea of intelligence and thus dominating the sensuous body. It isn't that way. Nebuch, we're all in the rut where that unbelievable tool that we have, these ideas, and they are taken in, they are dominated by our sensuous personality and activated in our big hunk of sensuous body. So, how do you redeem that? How do you take it away? How do you grow up? It's like saying, how do we mature? How do we take this great gift and channel it back to where it should be? That's the question. You see, she's in Nebuch. First of all, the realization this is Shivya is a very important thing. You realize that, what I'm living now is I'm taking this unbelievable princess and she is now in jail. This unbelievable chelik l'kami mal, this unbelievable neshama, which its source isn't even expressed in the body, only influences that influence of something which is higher than me. I take it, I put it down into the mud. The idea of realizing when you look in the mirror, you're seeing a eishes yefas toyer is in Shivya. So how do we get her out of Shivya? The question is, what do I do every morning? What does anybody do? So he says, "V'zel iyim ashikosuv ra'isa b'Shivya eishes yefas toyer," means to say, kasher yitorer ha'adam, when man wakes up, lo tzimi masger asir, to take that prisoner out of jail, to release the kaichas that the neshama has given me, to release them from the bondage to sensuousness, literally, to what should happen with it? Because that's really what you want. You want to take those gifts. They should not be dominated by sensuousness. They should dominate your sensuousness. Those gifts should be tools of perception, which will dominate your feeling, your touchy-feely personality. Commotion is Bible, Lakute, Amar, Perek Yud, and Perek Yud base. So what does one do? So it says, V'chashakta ba, that means you really have to want this. First of all, to redeem this, it's not enough to say I want, you have to have cheshik. You know the difference between wanting and desiring? They didn't say a streetcar called wanting. Now, if you understand a shtickle, your theater, okay, look it up. I'm not going to explain. Alan, you're the only one that understands my youth. Okay, a streetcar called desire. It's a chashva play. Okay, that's talking about a very sensuous reality. Okay, we'll leave it at that. That means you want to grow. There ain't no way it's going to happen with will. You have to have cheshik. I really want this. I have not just I have a desire for this. Okay. The step number one. Step number one is develop a desire. Step number two, vigilchat rosha. He has to shave his hair. Now, what does that mean? Now we're going to understand. Pirish v'chashaktaba hu in hitapchuta midot raot. Means you want to go to a metamorphosis. Now, everybody knows going through a metamorphosis, you pay a pound of flesh. Sorry. No one grows. No pain, no gain. Let's be honest about this. Okay. And you want to lose weight, brother dear, you can take all these injections from Heinz Morgan, and you can do all your fast. If you don't learn how to control yourself, you'll blow up. The end of the day. You have short-term gain, long-term, nothing happens. You have to learn how to contain yourself. So for hisapchus so you need cheshik for this. You really have to say, I'm going to do this. That's number one. I still remember how I stopped smoking. Same way. Cold turkey. 1 minute. Whatever happened. I'm not going to go into it. No more. That's it. I didn't need a patch. Didn't need beads. Didn't need the mail. These nicht is nicht. I shouldn't say, I want to live. That's it. I want to live. I do not want to die. That's it. So I stopped. As simple as that. Okay? Now, what does it mean? V'gilchat rosha? He havarata lebushim atzuim benefesh abahamis al kol panim kmo sheketav b'perek yud-bet. What does this mean? So it's late, but I'm going to say b'kitzur, and then we'll see it inside. You know, there's external expressions of the sensuous self, which the first stage you have to stop them. Now, what does that mean? Not to do Averis? Nah, I'm not talking about that. It's easy not to do Averis. You don't want to go to hell. I don't know what. No, it means to say, and this is something which I sent you, if you see on this in the WhatsApp group, I sent you the 8th chapter of Tanya. I'm going to ask you to learn it until next time around, okay? He discusses there that do you want to win this battle? Do you want to actually walk away from being a sensuous animal, drawn to pleasure, and become intelligent? Well, first of all, don't just do things because you feel like it. Do things only if it makes sense. You know, I always say I had hanging on my wall for years a cartoon strip of Calvin and Hobbes. Okay, where Calvin says to Hobbes, Hobbes, I've been thinking. And Hobbes says, did it hurt? You know, it hurts. Don't do anything before you think it makes sense. That's number one. For example, you know, you're not doing any Averis, but I want that chocolate, another piece of that cake. Does it make sense? No. Can you not do it? Are you capable of basically, not at a Avera level, are you capable of living with your brain? It's a very simple question. I always tell you the story. I don't, as a boy, I didn't Friday nights I sat and learned. I had a lot to do. But I always went to this Rebbe for 15 minutes. He was the Rebbe, not the Rebbe, the Shemer Munim Rebbe. He was the son of the Miyaseh, the founder of the Rebbe Aruch. And he passed away a few years ago. He was a very chashvid. And I used to watch only how he ate soup. I came to see how he ate the soup, and I went back to Beis Medrash. How did he eat his soup? He never put his head down to the plate. He always picked it up with a 90-degree angle, looked at it, and then brought it in. That was a man in exercise of Moach Shalit al Halev. The idea is this will not control me. I'm looking at it. Yes, I'm now going to do this for whatever purpose it is, and I'm going to put my mouth in it. So this is what he's going to be talking about. This is the next stage because he sees sarot. This is found also in Etzchaim. Sarot is means to say there are activities which are what he calls the additions to or the psilus, things which aren't that important of chachma. So first of all, can you take away, and I think we're doing aveirus, those things which you don't seem to attach too much importance to. That's where you have to fight. You have to decide not to. Of course, you can live intelligently and not drink liquor and speed in your car. Thank you much. That's obvious. That's a chochma pshuta. What about those small things that we just do by rote? The idea if we don't think before we do anything. I mean, between you and me, we all suffer from talking before we think. I have this sign on my door. Think before you speak, because those words will come back to haunt you. Good advice. Okay? It's the truth. If you would think before you speak and you realize the words will come back to haunt you, you may not say them. It's the same thing. The idea of the stages, this is what we're going to learn next week, or not, whenever it is, the idea of don't take your gifts and that God gave you and splurge them on shtiyot. God gave you the capability of creativity. Must it be used to be a creative negotiator in order to handle a great deal and make another $1 million? Or should it be used creativity to develop a profounder understanding of your relationship to you, God, your family, etc.? You're a chacham. What hitchakmut yiteira in Gashmius? We are all that. Hitchakmut yiteira. Using that gift that God gave us, using it in a disproportionate way for things which aren't that important. What's much more important is enhancing and enriching my intellectual self equals my soul life. It's called trying to use more of that part of the cerebellum of the brain, which isn't being used. That's what he's going to talk about next week, and this is where we're going to get to how do we go to work and make money in a balanced way. Not to get engaged and deep into the nefesh Bahamas, but actually controlling it. See you guys around. Kol tuv. Bye.
Bye. Thanks very much.
Take care.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Take care. Bye. Kol tuv.